So I saw this comment by this person who said they grew up in the 70s, and since they grew up in the 70s, they know how to go through a economic hardship. And what's basically telling young people, because that's the subject of this post, people that are millennials or younger, how to get through hard times by kind of basically tightening your belt and pulling yourselves up from by their bootstraps. I felt like I just had to make a video because whenever somebody online or just in general is saying that young people just need to kind of like tighten their belts and stuff, and they didn't live through a Great Depression, they really don't have any experience through this level of economic hardship. I say that because there's data that shows that millennials and people younger, like Gen Zers, Gen Alpha, they are living through a time that certain economic indicators are worse than the Great Depression. There was a Pew Research Center study in July 2020 that said that 52% of all U.S. adults aged between 18 and 29 were currently living with one or both of their parents, which was higher than any comparable figure, including during the Great Depression era. And I think this is important because right now, the average age of Congress is 58 years old. The president, Donald Trump, is approaching 80, and the boomer generation owns about half of all of the wealth in the country. So you can safely say that the interests of the government right now is for people around the age of the average boomer. You are definitely not going to see on the news or being talked about on your feed very regularly, since so much of the wealth that runs this country is owned by people above the age of 55. So you're not going to see people telling you that economic conditions are worse now for certain age groups, certain generations, than they were for people during the Great Depression. Boomers right now are not living through economic hardship to the extent that millennials and Gen Zers are, nor have they ever lived through that type of economic hardship. And they can say that they did live through economic hardship of some form during the 70s, the stagflation era, and I guess the dot-com boom, 2008, but nothing really compares. And the most important data point from the Great Depression era was homelessness, because elderly poverty is what FDR got elected on. Seeing many people, especially elderly people, homeless, unable to afford a place to live, was like the primary reason he was elected. And in July 2020, according to that Pew Research Center study, 52% of all young people aged 18 to 29 were living with one or both of their parents. And that was 5 years ago, and house prices have largely doubled since then. So and income definitely has not increased all that much, comparably speaking. So their economic situation for people of that age range is definitely worse and not better. So I'm sorry, boomers, but you did not live through this type of economic hardship that younger generations have inherited. I know you've probably had it hard living through the 70s and the 90s, the 2008 financial crisis, but y'all definitely didn't at one point, 52% of y'all live with your parents like Gen Zers and Millennials and Gen Alpha